The Onion Field is a movie I've been meaning to see for a long time, and now I've finally seen it. It's a film from 1979 based on a true story. In the early 1960s, two cops were taken prisoner by a couple of criminals in between robberies. The cops were driven out to an onion field outside of Bakersfield, California. One of the kidnappers, Greg Powell, thought that he and his partner, Jimmy Smith, were going to be sentenced to long-term prison anyway. He fired on Ian Campbell, though it's still a mystery as to how many bullets he actually shot and how many were shot by Smith afterwards. But the other cop, Carl Hettinger, barely escaped with his life. The two criminals were arrested, and thus began a long, tedious case against Powell and Smith. Hettinger, meanwhile, was used as an example in police academies as how not to behave in such situations. He was ostracized by other policemen and was driven almost crazy due to his constantly being summoned in court to testify, thus constantly regurgitating the memory in his head. Joseph Wambaugh wrote a book about it, and a film was subsequently made starring John Savage as Hettinger and James Woods as Powell. Oh, and believe it or not, Ted Danson played the role of Campbell in his first ever appearance on film. The movie was independently financed, thus allowing the filmmakers to be as accurate as possible to the story. The cars used were the same ones used in the actual crime, and the writer of the book adapted it into a screenplay. This is overall a decent film. The movie plays out excellently as it shows us the effects of a prolonged trial on a man's life. John Savage had mixed effects on me. His acting really got better after the murder, which occurs early in the film. James Woods, meanwhile, plays that blend of slick charm and violent sociopath. He figures out every way to lengthen the trial, trying to find a chink in the system. Never before have I seen just how excruciating the life of a lawyer can be. We see one of them cracking under pressure of having this case extended for so long, despite the criminal's obvious guilt. It's the system, the lawyer declares, and we can't help but agree. Meanwhile, we watch Hettinger descend into dark depression, and this leads to the best scene in the movie. It's also one of the most chilling scenes I've ever seen in film. John Savage almost scared me, and I'm not going to say what scene it is, because then you'll be ready for it. It's better to be caught off guard by it all, even as the movie covers years of legal battles between the criminals and the lawyers trying to bring them down. I don't really want to go into a political debate on the American use of the death penalty, but while watching this movie, I could see why people advocate its use. Watching a pair of cop killers strive to manipulate the system and all the while putting the survivor through hell with their continued trial, it's hard not to get angry from it. All in all, the movie succeeds in capturing these characters of history and putting them into a film. We see the brave young policeman who met a very tragic end. We are also provided an interesting look into the mindsets of his killers, and we're also given a portrait of the survivor, who was accused of not handling the situation properly and seemed to be blamed for surviving at all.